Hello and welcome to this video entitled Introduction to Clinical Hypnosis. My name is Dr. Tom Pickard. I am with the Department of Psychiatry at Western Michigan University School of Medicine in Kalamazoo. I have training in general psychiatry, psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, group psychotherapy, electroconvulsive therapy, and clinical hypnosis. Let's begin with a multiple choice question. Hypnosis is A. Black magic, B. Evil, C. Phony, D. Irrelevant, E. Scary, or F. A focused state of attention. If you answered a focused state of attention, you were correct. By definition, a subject under hypnosis is open to the verbal instructions and ideas of the hypnotist, often referred to as suggestibility. There is a relaxation of the skeptical faculties of the mind, a suspension of focus on day-to-day concerns, and reduced peripheral awareness. To better understand the use of hypnosis in 2023, let's take a brief look at the use of altered states of consciousness throughout history. Healing centers in Egypt, known as sleep temples, date back to around 2500 before the Common Era. They were associated with a priest by the name of Imhotep, who was a real man, but who was also later elevated to a god. There was an attempt to cure both psychological and physical problems. They made wide use of herbs, ritualistic prayers, and special rooms. The subject was placed in a trance or sleep state, hoping that a special dream would reveal a cure to their malady, as interpreted by the priests. Healing sleep centers were continued as an institution in ancient Greece under the patronage of the god Asclepius, the god of medicine, son of Apollo and Coronis. Before entering a healing temple, seekers would undergo purification rituals to cleanse the body, mind, and soul. Seekers would meditate, fast, take hot baths, and make sacrifices to the gods. Priests would use chanting and spells to place seekers into a sleep-like trance. This trance could last for up to 3 days. Priests then used suggestion to help seekers make contact with Asclepius and receive a cure to their illness. Over time, priests learned what herbs and plants might help in certain situations, in effect, becoming the first pharmacists. At one time, there were over 420 healing centers throughout Greece. The oracle at Delphi made use of altered states of consciousness, but for a purpose other than healing. The priestess, known as the Sibyl, would enter a trance while seated over a source of intoxicating fumes coming from within the earth. She would hear the questions of the supplicants, then open herself to receive guidance from the god Apollo. This was a highly ritualized affair. It was in continuous use for more than 1,000 years, and the oracle's proclamations were taken very seriously. Besides Egypt and Greece, many cultures around the world had an institution known as shamanism. The shaman was a holy man who would enter an altered state of consciousness to direct spirits or spiritual energies for the purpose of healing, for divination, that is, to gain insight into a question or situation, or for some other purpose. Thus, the shamans played both the role of a healing temple in Greece and Rome as well as the oracle. Ancient Rome continued the use of healing sleep temples. They were dedicated to the gods Apollo, who had no clear Roman counterpart, and Asclepius, the Roman equivalent of the god Asclepius. Gradually, however, this practice came to an end with the ascent of Christianity, though the church adopted the use of incense, prayer, group singing, and sacred spaces, but repurposed them for the worship of God. Franz Mesmer. Mesmer lived from 1734 to 1815. He was a physician in Vienna who was convinced that astronomy and magnetism played a role in human health. In 1774, when he was 40 years old, he had a patient swallow a preparation containing iron. He then attached magnets to her body. She reported feeling a mysterious fluid running through her, and her symptoms temporarily disappeared. Mesmer posited that an invisible force called animal magnetism was responsible for the woman's cure, and that his contribution to this force as the physician was instrumental in the cure. Over the next 10 years in Vienna and then in Paris, he treated a wide variety of problems using what we would now consider to be suggestion, personal charisma, and theatrics. In 1784, King Louis XVI appointed a commission to investigate Mesmer's claims, a commission including American Ambassador Benjamin Franklin. The commission concluded that there was no evidence of a magnetic fluid, and the benefit of Mesmer's treatments were attributed to imagination. Disgraced, Franz Mesmer moved to Switzerland and quietly practiced medicine for a number of more years until his death 31 years later. Perhaps this was a lost opportunity, as the commission could have encouraged continued study into the powerful effects of so-called imagination. This commission's findings is considered the first official description of what we now call the placebo effect. Abbe Faria was a Catholic priest intrigued by mesmerism. He lived from 1756 through 1819. Actually, Abbe is a church title and not part of his name. He has a very colorful history, including 20 years in prison under Napoleon Bonaparte. He wrote the treatise On the Cause of Lucid Sleep. He attributed the effects of mesmerism to suggestion and termed the hypnotic state of consciousness, quote, lucid sleep. Etienne de Cuvier was a Frenchman who lived from 1755 through 1841. He was the first to use the term hypnosis, drawing on the Greek word hypnos, which meant either the state of sleep or the god of sleep, the fatherless son of Nyx, the goddess of the night. 1829 saw the first recorded use of hypnosis for anesthesia in a breast surgery performed by Dr. Jules Cloquet in Paris. A colleague later asked him why he did not use hypnosis more often, and he said that he did not dare. The bias against mesmerism was so strong, his career would have come to an end. Please note that 1829 was 17 years before the discovery of ether, the first anesthetic, in 1846. In other words, people went without any help for pain during surgery for 17 years, even though a proven method for relief was available. With Dr. James Braid, hypnosis enters the modern era. He lived from 1795 through 1860 and is considered by many to be the father of modern hypnosis. He saw his first stage hypnosis show at age 46 and was intrigued. As he studied the phenomenon professionally, he tried to downplay the links with Franz Mesmer or any idea that hypnosis was somehow mysterious or frightening. He made hypnosis respectable, scientifically and clinically, and at one point said, quote, I consider hypnosis to be merely a simple, speedy, and certain mode of throwing the nervous system into a new condition, which may be rendered eminently available in the cure of certain disorders. Dr. Hippolyte Bernheim, 1840 through 1919, was the first to explore how false memories can be created with hypnosis. For an intriguing modern example, please watch British entertainer Darren Brown create a false memory in Simon Pegg, a well-known British actor, comedian, and screenwriter. I will leave a link in the description. Jean-Martin Charcot was a French physician who is considered to be the father of modern neurology. He lived from 1825 through 1893. He coined the term hysteria to mean roughly people with a certain emotional excess or some sort of unexplained physical symptom arising from a psychological cause. Conditions we would now term psychosomatic. He found that many of these patients responded to hypnosis. As a result, he came to believe that the susceptibility to hypnosis is synonymous with some kind of disease state. Dr. Charcot opposed the use of hypnosis outside this narrow scope. There was much debate about hypnosis during the second half of the 1800s. Bernheim and others, known as the Nancy School, were harshly critical of Charcot and his followers. The Nancy School considered hypnosis to be a natural state, one that could be helpful to people utilizing the power of suggestion. Charcot, on the other hand, considered it a sign of disease. The debate was intense and personal. Charcot held sway during his lifetime, being as influential as he was, while the Nancy School's opinion became the norm in the 20th and 21st centuries. Sigmund Freud, 1856 through 1939, began his medical career as a neurologist and thus had a considerable number of patients with unexplained psychosomatic symptoms. He observed practitioners of both schools of hypnosis and then began using it in his own practice. He enjoyed considerable success and published his findings in the 1895 book, Studies on Hysteria. However, Freud eventually concluded that hypnosis was ineffective because many of his patients had a recurrence of symptoms down the road or developed new unexplained psychosomatic symptoms. He went on to develop the ideas of psychoanalysis using the technique free association. However, in later years, given the cost and time and money of standard psychoanalysis, Freud's attitude towards hypnosis softened. Personally, I think Freud also moved on because wherein hypnosis was helpful to people, it still did not explain the origin of their symptoms. In contrast, psychoanalysis was not just a way of helping, but was an entire theory of what motivated people and how these psychosomatic symptoms were created in the first place. Dr. Émile Coué was a French pharmacist with a keen interest in hypnosis. He lived from 1857 through 1926. He developed his own technique as a hypnotherapist and over time came to believe that the suggestions patients gave to themselves were the most effective, what we would now consider to be self-hypnosis. He coined the well-known affirmation, quote, "Every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better." Milton Erickson was an American psychiatrist and psychotherapist who specialized in family therapy and hypnosis. He lived from 1901 through 1980. Erickson wrote several books and was the founder of the American Society for Clinical Hypnosis. Over time, he developed his own technique termed Ericksonian therapy. He made use of indirect suggestion, metaphor, confusion techniques, and double binds. Some question whether this can be considered hypnosis or hypnotherapy at all. World War II brought an avalanche of psychological casualties which prompted clinicians to try many different things. Under the influence of barbiturates, other drugs, and or hypnosis, soldiers were encouraged to talk about and relive their trauma in order to release the pent-up emotions. This was termed abreaction or catharsis. At the time, this was felt to be helpful. However, it led to some unfortunate attempts at mind control during the Cold War. The idea of catharsis goes back to ancient Greece. Aristotle was the first to use the concept, describing how music, art, poetry, and drama can lead to emotional growth or the ascent of the soul. However, strict abreaction has fallen out of favor. Rather than describing a past trauma and reliving it, these days more focus is placed on the beliefs and concepts that emerged out of the trauma, those that are holding the patient back in the present day. Hypnosis in the 21st century. Hypnosis for entertainment, that is to say stage hypnosis, is still around. It is a form of entertainment, not an attempt to help somebody with psychological problems. These shows date back to the early 1800s and can be very, very funny. However, some do object to the practice on ethical grounds. Modern hypnotherapy has many uses. Medical uses include smoking cessation, weight loss, stress reduction, psychiatric symptom management, as in fears and phobias, self-limiting beliefs and mood disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, and addictions. Physical symptom management includes pain reduction, and generally the ability to manage or cope in the face of any acute or chronic symptoms that are essentially unavoidable. Hypnotherapy is also used in non-medical situations to enhance somebody's performance or remove psychological blocks, which can occur in sports, academics, or in one's career. Modern hypnotherapy also has some questionable or arguable uses. I term these uses arguable because they all involve recovering memories, and it is beyond dispute that hypnosis has the potential of creating false memory. Now, with that said, hypnosis is being used with people who claim or suspect that they have been abducted by aliens. This may sound far out, but the practice was pioneered by John Mack, MD, who was head of psychiatry at Harvard and wrote the book Abduction: Human Encounters with Aliens, published in 1994. Hypnosis is also being used to recover memories of former lives or pre-birth memories. However, this is within the context of belief in reincarnation, a belief that not everybody subscribes to. Now let's talk for a few seconds about what actually happens in a hypnotherapy session. Of course, this does depend on the goal, but basically in a 50-minute session, one can expect that 30 to 35 minutes of that time is involved in reviewing goals and progress, and the last 15-20 minutes involves the actual hypnotic trance, which of course includes an induction, followed by either an interview from memories or the concepts, guidance, and suggestions provided by the hypnotist, and then finally a return to wakefulness. So, can anyone be hypnotized? The answer is yes, but some people are more hypnotizable than others. Hypnotizability as a personality trait roughly follows a normal curve in the general population and is stable over time for the most part. There are rating scales to determine the level of hypnotizability, but they take time to administer, so they're most often used in research. The shortest is probably the hypnotic induction profile, which takes about 10 minutes. Harvard and Stanford both have hypnotizability scales, and there are others as well. However, it is generally presumed that those people seeking clinical hypnosis will be open enough to benefit from it. Now, a few words about theory. What is actually happening when a subject is hypnotized? It will probably not surprise you that this question remains hotly contested like it was in the 19th century. Basically, the arguments separate between the state and the non-state explanations. There are those who believe hypnosis is a unique state of consciousness, most similar to deep meditation or perhaps a form of sleep. These people have no problem referring to this state as a hypnotic trance. Those who argue for non-state concepts feel that hypnosis represents merely an adjustment in our normal social, cognitive, and behavioral functioning. Perhaps psychologist Robert White said it best in 1941. He gave a succinct summary of the non-state explanation. Quote, "Hypnotic behavior is meaningful, goal-directed striving, its most general goal being to behave like the hypnotized person, as this is continuously defined by the operator and understood by the client." With all that said, I would like to now share my own synthesis as to how I understand hypnosis and what is happening. Basically, I do believe it is a special state of consciousness. So first, let's mention the three ordinary states of consciousness: wakefulness, deep sleep, and dream sleep. I don't think I need to describe these in any more detail since they are quite familiar. Some say that there is a fourth state of consciousness, referring to what we would call in the West as self-awareness, that which is the source of and aware of the other three states. But this is really not important in our discussion here. Simply put, hypnosis does share some features of wakefulness. The subjects are aware of their surroundings, although this can be lost in a very deep trance. There is some ability to talk, which is important when recovering past memories or revealing repressed emotions. Subjects also have the ability to move or to take purposeful action, which is seen clearly in stage hypnosis, whereas in a hypnotherapy, subjects usually stay reclined in a chair or on a couch. Simultaneously, hypnosis also has some features of dream sleep. There is a temporary suspension of logic. The laws of time and space are not fixed, they're fluid. The impossible can seem possible, and there can be a hazy recall for the hypnotic trance, sometimes complete amnesia. So, in summary, I do see hypnosis as a unique state of consciousness with a focused state of attention and openness to the verbal instructions and ideas of the hypnotist, often referred to as suggestibility. There is a relaxation of the skeptical faculties of the mind, a suspension of focus on day-to-day concerns, and reduced peripheral awareness. And I believe it is this feature, the relaxation of the skeptical faculties of the mind, this feature that makes hypnosis so useful. Now, a simple model of the mind is that it consists of beliefs, concepts, and memories in the background, and thoughts, emotions, and sensory data in the foreground, all of which are filtered and understood through the lens of the underlying beliefs. Now, many of these beliefs do not create problems, but some of them do. Beliefs like, I can't do it, I am not deserving, I will never succeed. When experience is filtered and understood through these limiting beliefs, they hold the person back and cause them to suffer. Hypnosis can quickly and easily change these self-limiting beliefs. In wakefulness, during standard psychotherapy, it can take many repetitions and several sessions in order to change a problematic belief. But in hypnosis, it can be a matter of a few minutes. Some people describe this as a return to the learning mode that was characteristic in all of us ages 0 through 7 years old, when we took in things we were told and things we saw and it accepted them as true without argument. Now for a couple analogies which I find useful in helping people understand clinical hypnosis. Consider the experience of riding as a passenger in a car. You and your friend agree ahead of time on the destination. Yet during the journey, you can relax and let your friend deal with the route, the safety, and any other hassles having to do with driving. You can relax. You can even take a nap if you want. Similarly, in clinical hypnosis, you agree with the therapist on the goals and objectives, the destination, but you trust and allow the hypnotist to know how to drive and to get you there safely in one piece, better than you were before. Or consider a computer. Sometimes it gets bogged down. The programs don't run correctly or run way too slow, and we need to reboot. Or sometimes we update the entire operating system. Similarly, in life, sometimes the self-limiting beliefs that are present in the mind can bog people down and create suffering. Hypnosis is a way to go in and install a fresh, clean, positive operating system without the negative baggage people sometimes carry from the past. So hypnosis can be a powerful force for good. Can it also be used unethically? Indeed, it can. The answer to that question is yes. If you have any doubt, please watch this clip of Darren Brown compelling a cashier at the horse race track to pay out on a losing ticket. This essentially is theft. However, everything in life has the potential for unethical use. In this sense, hypnosis is not fundamentally different than any other aspect of life and any other aspect of the healing arts. And in case there are any questions, hypnotherapists do follow a code of ethical conduct, a copy of which can be found by following this link. The first principle, as in other areas of medicine, is to do no harm. So, wrapping up, let's return to the multiple choice question that began this video. Is hypnosis black magic, evil, phony, irrelevant, or scary? I hope I have persuaded you that the answer to all of these questions is no. Thank you so much for your attention. Good day.